Hello there, Michelle Short here for Tonic Studios. Today I'm taking a look at glacier pastes, or glacier pastes depending on where you are in the world to how you pronounce it. There are currently 8 colours of glacier pastes, 3 existing colours and 2 new ones that are just out. I will be looking at the first 6 colours today. So the jars of glacier paste hold 50ml or 1.7 fluid ounces of paste. On the jar it explains how to use the paste and that you will need to let your project dry flat for 24 hours before posting or mailing, and then it gives you some information on the different colours. They've got the lovely Nuvo logo on the top of the jar, and then to open the jar you just need to twist the top. When you open the jar you'll have a piece of kind of polystyrene type material and you want to keep that, and then there will also be some foil covering the opening of the jar and you want to remove that before you use it. And then the paste is inside. Glacier paste is an embossing texture paste and it's full of mica flakes which give a beautiful metallic and pearlescent finish. It's a lot more fluffier than other kinds of texture pastes on the market. It's kind of got the texture of whipped cream. It's really beautiful, and like I said, it's absolutely packed full of mica flakes, so you get a really lovely metallic finish to them. I'm just going to share with you what the different colours are currently. This one here is the Frostbite colour and it has a beautiful light bluish tone to it. I do show you here what it looks like painted onto white cardstock, and then there is a circle of what it looks like on black cardstock because these pastes do differ depending on what surface you add it to. This is the Sea Sprite colour, a really beautiful aqua green. As you can see, they shimmer beautifully in the light. The next one here is Quicksilver, and as the name suggests, this is a silver colour and again has a beautiful sheen in the light, and looking on it from straight on it has that beautiful silver colour as well. Next up is a lovely colour for Christmas cards in particular. This is the Haute Red. And like I said, perfect for Christmas cards, but obviously you can use this all year round as well. A really nice vibrant red colour. And then another one to go alongside that, perfect for Christmas, is the Green Envy. But this would be perfect for floral cards and leaves and things like that as well. And then last but not least is the Golden Era, and this is a beautiful gold colour. As you can see, they really shimmer beautifully in the light. So for my first technique, I'm going to use the glacier pastes, applying through a stencil with a spatula. So I have taken the linking rings stencil and I'm just adding that onto a panel of white cardstock. I'm going to tape that down with some low tack tape onto my glass media mat here. And then I'm going to open the jar of the glacier paste, and for this one I'm using the Frostbite colour. Like I said, it's a really pretty blue colour. I'm using the media spatula here and they fit perfectly into the size of the jars, which is great. And I'm going to apply that through the stencil. Because the glacier paste is more of a fluffy texture rather than a kind of, it's lighter in texture, I suppose. It does often come out of the parts of the stencil if you press too hard. So you do want to give a really light pressure with this glacier paste. And I like to go in different directions with the media spatula just to make sure that I get into all of the nooks and crannies of the stencil. You can apply this as thickly or as thinly as you want to. It depends on the different colour of how opaque they turn out to be. Sometimes you can see the cardstock through it and sometimes you can't. It just depends on how thick you apply it. For the most part, glacier paste does dry fairly flat, but you definitely can add texture if you want to. It just depends on the look you're going for. And the glacier paste cleans off really nicely off of the spatulas and off of the stencils as well. You might just want to wash that with some warm water. So I'm just removing the stencil here, and as you can see it's left a really lovely detail there with some texture and that beautiful pearlescent shine, and as that dries it's going to increase the pearlescent shine as well. So what I did for this piece, I cut it down because I just wanted a small piece. I wanted to create a tag with it. So I left that for 24 hours to dry fully before I die cut that and ran that through the die cutting machine. I used a tag die for that, and then I added some detail on top. I used the Penny Bloom stamp set and coloured that with Nuvo alcohol markers as well as some colour pencils, and the sentiment there is from the Celebrate Sentiment stamp set. I also did create this onto black cardstock here just so that you could see the difference between them both. You do get a very different look between them, and it just depends on what look you're going for, on which different colour cardstock you want to add underneath. But I really love how the Glacier pastes work with the stencils to give more of an opaque look. Next, I'm going to create more of a subtle sheen onto my card using the Nuvo Daubers. So I have taken some white cardstock again, and this time I'm using the Petal pattern stencil, and these are the Nuvo blending Daubers. They are a plastic handle, and then you can replace the foams on the top of them, and these work really nicely for ink blending, but they also work nicely to apply the Glacier pastes as well. So first of all, I'm going to add a layer of ink blending over my stencil, and this is the Laguna Bay Nuvo Hybrid ink, and I'm just going in circular motions on top of that stencil to add the colour onto my cardstock. I want to have the colour slightly darker at the bottom, moving on to lighter at the top to create an ombre look. So I'm just using small motions here, circular motions, just to add that colour onto the panel. As you can see, I have sped this portion of the video up quite a bit, just because this isn't really part of the technique, but I really love adding Glacier pastes on top of inked backgrounds. You don't necessarily get so much of the colour with this technique, but you get a lot of that mica flake sparkle. So for this one, I'm using the Sea Sprite Glacier paste. I thought the colour would work really nicely with that Laguna Bay ink. So I'm just using the spatula here just to take some out and put that on the glass media mat. I did actually take too much out of the jar, but as you'll see, you can just add it back into the jar, no problem. So now I'm going to use that same Dauber, and I haven't replaced the foam because the colour isn't going to make too much difference at this point, but the colours do match quite nicely. So I'm just dabbing that into the Glacier paste here. It's a bit difficult to see onto the foam whether you've got the paste or not, but in real life you can see that a bit easier. And then just like how I applied the ink, I'm just going in round motions here and applying that Glacier paste through the stencil. Like I say, it does remove a little bit of the colour, but it leaves the beautiful sheen of the mica flakes, and you'll see that at the end. I do also kind of dab it a little bit. The more you add, obviously, the more shine you'll get. So I'm kind of adding more of it at the bottom and then going lighter towards the top, like the ombre look, because I wanted to have a little bit less sparkle at the top, just to mimic the ombre of the ink blending. So just dabbing more of that at the top rather than using the sweeping motion. So once I'm happy with that, as you can probably see at the bottom right hand corner here how that sparkles already. I'm just going to add the rest of the Glacier paste back into the jar. I don't want to waste that. And once I'm done, like I said, I can clean off the mat with some water, and it cleans off really easily. So I'm just removing that stencil, and that leaves a really pretty pattern. If you're looking at this piece close on, you'll see the silver sparkle from the mica flakes, and then if you look at it in the light, you just see the pearlescent metallic finish, which is really, really pretty. Like I said, this is a bit more of a subtle look, but it's really nice if you just want to add some shimmer rather than the opaqueness of the Glacier paste. And I wanted to show you that you can do this technique on dark cardstock as well. I think it looks really pretty on this black cardstock here. I'm just using the same colour of the Glacier paste, and as you can see, it just gives a really lovely kind of frosted look. I think this would look really pretty for Christmas and winter cards, but I did also do this technique adding a few different colours, and I thought it looked a bit like a galaxy background. So definitely do experiment with these glacier pastes and see what kind of looks you can get from them on different colours of cardstock. So as you can see, you get that really beautiful shimmer straight away. And this is the one that I added a few different colours to. It's always a bit difficult to see on camera with so much shimmer, but I added quite a few different colours, and like I said, I thought that looked a bit like a galaxy background. So for this card, I cut the panel down and added that onto an A2 size white card base, and I used the sentiment here from the You're the Best Floral Frame die set, and I die cut that from black cardstock, and then also the leaf, I embossed that onto some vellum from the Peony Bloom stamp set. For my final technique today, I'm applying the glacier paste with a paintbrush to create a metallic cardstock that you can use for die cutting. So I'm taking the Golden Era glacier paste and a Nuvo paintbrush, and I'm applying this onto a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to try and apply a fairly even coating over the entire piece of cardstock here. And first of all, I'm just going in both directions with the paintbrush just to try and get that layer as even as possible in thickness. And then once I think it's fairly even, I'm going to go over it using the same direction just so that the brush strokes are all in one direction. And then I'm going to heat set this layer so that I can add another layer on top. There's only so many layers you can add with a paintbrush before it gets a little bit difficult to add any more. But what you can do is heat set this with a heat tool in between, or you can just let it dry naturally if you wanted to. I didn't find that I got any bubbling or anything like that from heat setting it with a heat tool. Now that that is completely dry, or at least dry enough to touch, I'm going to apply another layer of the glacier paste over the top. And for this one, I'm just trying to, again, make it about the same thickness. It doesn't have to be as thick as the bottom layer. You just want to make sure that it's as opaque as possible so that you don't see the white cardstock underneath, although you definitely could if you wanted to. That would just be a different look. I'm then going to set that piece aside to dry for 24 hours before die cutting. But with the powers of video editing, this piece here has been left to dry for 24 hours. And I'm taking 2 layers of the Delicate Butterfly Silhouettes die set, and I'm going to die cut this from the metallic cardstock that we have created. So I'm just placing that down onto the cardstock and using some low tack tape to keep that in place. And then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine, and it gives a really pretty metallic look to the cardstock and also the die cut. While it was wet, I could add some embossing powder or some glitter or anything like that as well if I wanted to, but I think it looks really pretty on its own just as a metallic die cut element. For the card, I simply embossed a sentiment from the Celebrate Sentiment stamp set, and then added some ebony black crystal drops around that to finish. Thank you so much for joining me today for a look at Nuvo Glacier Paste. Links to the products that I shared will be in the description box on YouTube and also over on the blog, and I hope you have a wonderful day.